In a forgotten corner of Knoxville, Tennessee, stood a small house of reddish bricks. This house, though simple, held an aura of warmth and love, like a beacon of hope amidst the harshness of winter. This house was the home of James Carter and his wife, Sarah. James was a man of solid build, with deep blue eyes that carried a rough wisdom earned through years of hard work. He was a local carpenter, known in town for his skill of transforming simple pieces of wood into utilitarian works of art. But before the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and let us know in the comments what you thought of the video. His work, however, was not enough to provide a comfortable lifestyle. James's salary, although honest, was modest, just enough to support him and Sarah. Sarah, a woman of gentle features and a smile that could soothe the stormiest of seas, was pregnant. She had been a teacher at a local school, but due to her pregnancy, had to leave her job. Despite the difficulties they faced, James and Sarah would not let adversity weaken their love for each other or their joy for the life growing in Sarah's womb. Every day was a struggle to survive, and every night was a celebration of having managed to get through another day. Life was tough, but they would not trade their humble existence for anything in the world. They believed that the love they shared and the family they were starting to build were their greatest treasures. On a cold winter's day, as the snow fell slowly from the sky, covering the town in a white blanket, James was getting ready for another day of work. He put on his wool coat, his thick gloves, and grabbed his toolbox. Sarah, wrapped in a blanket on the couch, watched James with eyes full of love and concern. "Promise me you'll take care of yourself, James," said Sarah, holding her belly while her other hand clutched a cup of hot tea. "I promise, love," James replied, leaning in to give Sarah a kiss on her forehead. After James left, the house fell silent, save for the soft ticking of the clock and the occasional whistle of the wind outside. Sarah spent the day alone, trying to keep the house tidy and preparing dinner. She also spent a good amount of time stroking her belly, talking to the baby about how much they were looking forward to its arrival. The day passed slowly, and when night fell, James returned home, exhausted but with a smile on his face. Despite the exhaustion, the joy of seeing Sarah and the excitement of impending fatherhood always gave him energy. They dined together, laughing and talking about their day. The morning sun found James and Sarah fast asleep, tired from the emotions of the previous day. Their routine continued in the same way for the next few months, with James working hard during the day and coming home to spend the nights with Sarah. Life was tough, but they faced it together, supporting each other every step of the way. As Sarah's pregnancy progressed, the reality that they would soon be parents began to weigh on them. Fears about their child's future started to creep into their nightly conversations, tinging their joy with worry. James, in particular, would watch Sarah as she slept, his mind racing with thoughts of how he could provide the life he desired for his family. On one of these days, after a long day at work, James came home with a somber expression. He had received the news that his salary would be cut due to a drop in furniture orders. The worries that were already piling up in his heart now seemed like an insurmountable mountain. He shared the news with Sarah, who listened with a serene countenance. She put her hand on his face, squeezing his cheek affectionately. "We will get through this, James," she said, with a quiet determination in her voice. "We always have." It was that night, as the full moon cast a soft light over the small house, that Sarah started to feel contractions. What was meant to be a quiet night quickly turned into a frenzy of activity. James, though scared, did his best to stay calm and took Sarah to the hospital. The following hours were a blur for James. He remembers holding Sarah's hand, the sweat on her brow, the tears in his eyes, and finally, the sharp cry of a baby. However, the crying did not stop with one, but multiplied, filling the room with the symphony of 3 new lives that had come into the world. "Congratulations, you have triplets," announced the doctor, a weary smile on his face. James and Sarah looked at each other, shocked and disbelieving. 3? How would they take care of 3 babies? The following days were an emotional roller coaster. The joy of becoming parents was overshadowed by the anxiety of how they would take care of 3 children. The sleepless nights and the constant strain on their expressions were evidence of the fear that dominated their hearts. One day, as Sarah was nursing one of the babies, a dreadful idea crossed James's mind. What if they chose just one baby to stay with them and gave the other 2 up for adoption? It was a terrible idea, but the reality of their situation made it gain some merit. With a heavy heart, he shared his thoughts with Sarah. She was horrified at first, but as the realities of their life became clearer, she started to see the reason behind his suggestion. They decided, then, that they would give 2 of the triplets up for adoption. They chose the middle baby to stay with them, whom they named Samuel. The process of choosing which of their children would stay with them was agonizing, a wound in their hearts that they knew would never heal. The adoption was swift. A wealthy couple who couldn't have children adopted the remaining 2 boys, promising to give them the life that James and Sarah couldn't. They seemed like good people, and that gave James and Sarah some comfort. However, each night, as they rocked Samuel to sleep, they couldn't help but imagine what their days would be like if all their children were with them. They couldn't help but wonder if they had made the right decision. They couldn't help but miss the 2 boys who had gone away. So, the chapter of their lives with 3 children closed. Life continued with its relentless rhythm, leaving them with an open wound that refused to heal. Over time, the wound that was the separation of the triplets slowly turned into a scar. But scars never disappear, they remain as permanent reminders of past pain. For James and Sarah, every laugh from Samuel, every milestone he achieved, was a bittersweet mix of joy and sadness, as they wondered what their other 2 sons would be like. Samuel grew up to be a good-hearted and hard-working boy, very much like his father. He excelled in school and helped his parents at home and in the workshop. Despite the hardships, he kept a radiant smile on his face, a bright light in a gloomy reality. Meanwhile, far from Midville, the 2 brothers, Charles and Robert, were adopted by a wealthy couple. They had everything they could wish for, except the knowledge of their true origin. They grew up in a large mansion with all possible luxuries and were sent to the best schools. Charles grew up to be a bold and charismatic young man. He had an innate love for adventure and had the ability to make friends wherever he went. Robert, on the other hand, was introverted and methodical. He had a deep love for knowledge and spent hours in his private library, devouring books of all kinds. The reunion ended with an emotional hug. Charles, Robert, and Samuel promised to keep in touch and try to make up for lost time. Samuel felt relieved as he left the cafe. Something in his chest felt lighter. He knew the path ahead would be complicated and uncertain, but for the first time, he felt he wasn't alone. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Samuel told his parents about the meeting and they were thrilled to know their adopted sons had grown to be successful men. They felt a pang of sadness thinking about what could have been, but they were grateful to know that Charles and Robert were well. Charles and Robert also went through their own emotional roller coaster. They were shocked to learn they were adopted, and even more so to find out they had a brother. However, they also felt a strange sense of relief. Pieces of their past that didn't seem to fit suddenly began to make sense. Life as they knew it had changed, but they were all willing to face whatever the future held together. They had found the family they never knew they were missing and were determined to hold onto their bonds. In the months following the cafe reunion, the bond between the 3 brothers strengthened. Samuel, Charles, and Robert strived to know each other better. They exchanged stories, memories, joys, and sorrows, rediscovering the brotherhood that fate had stolen from them. During this time, Samuel noticed the chasm between his life and his brothers. While Charles and Robert lived in luxurious mansions, Samuel was still stuck in his humble life. They would discuss trips abroad, expensive restaurants, and high society events, things Samuel could only dream of. He felt out of place, an intruder in his own family circle. That's when an idea began to form in Charles and Robert's minds. They discussed it amongst themselves before bringing it to Samuel. During one of their regular get-togethers, Charles, with a gleam of excitement in his eyes, presented the idea to Samuel. They wanted Samuel to move to their city, where they could provide him a better life. They could help him find a better job, he could live in one of their guest houses, and they could spend more time together, like a family. Samuel was stunned. He felt flattered, moved, and frightened all at once. The idea of leaving everything behind was terrifying, but the promise of a better life was tempting. He asked for time to think over the offer. The following days were filled with indecision. Samuel weighed the pros and cons, wrestling with his own pride and desire for a better life. He spent long hours discussing the offer with his parents, who assured him that, no matter what he decided, they would support him. After much reflection, Samuel decided to accept his brother's offer. He was nervous, but the idea of finally having a better life and being closer to his brothers was too much to resist. He informed Charles and Robert of his decision, which was met with excitement. Life as Samuel knew it was about to change, and he could only hope it would be for the better. When Samuel arrived in his brother's city, he was amazed by the beautiful streets and grand buildings he saw. He moved into Robert's guest house, a beautiful and cozy place with a small garden in the front. Samuel couldn't believe he was finally living a life he had only dreamed of. The first few days were dedicated to adaptation. Everything was new and exciting, but also a little daunting. Samuel struggled to adjust to his new life, but sometimes felt overwhelmed. He was afraid he wouldn't fit in, that he wouldn't be enough. Charles and Robert did everything in their power to help Samuel settle in. They introduced him to their friends, took him to explore the city, and even helped him find a new job. Samuel started working as an assistant in one of Robert's companies, a job he discovered he loved. Despite the challenges, Samuel felt a sense of fulfillment he had never felt before. He was finally doing something with his life, he was finally living his dream. Each day brought a new adventure, a new learning experience. However, not everything was perfect. As the months went by, Samuel began to feel a pang of homesickness. He missed his parents, his friends, the simplicity of his old life. He started to question whether he had made the right decision, whether he truly belonged in that new world. Amidst this internal crisis, Samuel found comfort in his brothers. Charles and Robert, although initially unaware of Samuel's internal struggle, sensed his distress. They reminded him that change is difficult, but with time, he would find his place. They reminded him that they were a family, and together, they could face anything. This unwavering support from his brothers helped Samuel gain confidence. He decided to give himself a chance, to work hard to create a life he could be proud of. He knew the journey wouldn't be easy, but he also knew that with Charles and Robert by his side, he could overcome anything. Samuel's new life was progressing better than he could have ever expected. He was thriving in his new job, learning new things every day, and feeling more comfortable in the city. However, one thing still weighed on his heart, the longing for home and missing his parents. After lengthy discussions with Charles and Robert, Samuel decided it was time to return home and visit his parents. He felt that despite all the progress he was making, something within him was still unfinished. He missed his parents and wanted to show them the man he had become. Upon returning to his hometown, Samuel was greeted with warm smiles and tight hugs. His parents could hardly believe how much he had changed. He had transformed from an uncertain young man into a confident and successful individual. Samuel felt a warmth in his chest as he shared with them about his new life, his new friends, and his work. Samuel also reunited with his old friends. He told them about his adventures and attentively listened to the stories of their own lives. He felt more connected to them than ever, despite the distance that separated them. The visit to his hometown served as a reminder to Samuel of how far he had come. He realized that although his life had changed drastically, he was still the same Samuel. He was still the small-town boy with big dreams and a heart full of hope. And now, he was living those dreams. Samuel's journey was marked by ups and downs, joys and sorrows, successes and failures. But amidst it all, he found the strength within himself to persevere and never give up. And most importantly, he found a family in his brothers, a connection that nothing could break. At the end of the visit, Samuel returned to his new city, to his new home. He knew that there were still challenges to face and much to be learned. But he also knew that he had the support of his brothers and the love of his parents. He knew that no matter what happened, he would always have a place to call home. Did you like this story? Comment below what you think and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.